Get your motors running and head out on the highway because we're talking car shows on this week's podcast. Hello again and welcome back to another episode of Wisconsin's Outdoor Explorer podcast. I am your host, Jason. I have always loved cars, even when I was a kid, playing around with my Hot Wheels cars in the living room or my toy trucks out in my sandbox. Whatever I could get my hands on for cars as a kid, I did it. And I've always had a fascination with how cars work, how they've developed and how they've improved over the years. And it stems back probably from, my time as a youngster, always helping my dad work on his cars and always being around the motorsports scene of pulling and racing and always kind of enjoying NASCAR racing too. So I've always kind of had a background in cars in one way or another. And my love of cars really increased as soon as I got my license and bought my first truck, which I still own today. And it's a 1971 Chevy pickup that when I was in high school, it was kind of a beat up and rusted truck. And as I worked my way through high school, I was able to stick money into it and fixed it up, and it really turned out to be a pretty nice looking truck that I still have today and don't plan on ever getting rid of. But my dream car has always been a 57 Chevy Bel Air convertible. I've always loved that car. I love everything about that car, like the look and the style and all the chrome, and to me that car has always stood above any other car that has ever been made. It's just, that to me is the pinnacle of cars, and it's just such a icon of American cars. My goal someday is to hopefully own one of those cars and be able to drive it around and just enjoy it for really, truly what it is. But it's not just that car of the 50s era that I really loved. I also grew up learning about the muscle car era. It's a time that my dad grew up in, and he is always willing to share stories about his, friends doing things they probably shouldn't have been doing with those cars. But he's always got some story about some manufacturer, somebody bought this one and challenged somebody with this car. So the muscle car era, in my opinion, was kind of the last great era of cars. It showcased kind of the power and the style that most cars kind of lack today. I mean, don't get me wrong. I love how reliable our vehicles are today. I love, all the comforts of, air conditioning and having Bluetooth radio and having, maps right there in our dash. And don't get me wrong, they are great cars today, but it was just something about muscle cars, like I said, that really showcased that true power that you can get out of a vehicle and that you can enjoy it and just have so much fun with a car and the car being kind of the centerpiece of attention. And I think we miss that a little bit in some of our cars today. They all kind of look the same. The colors, if you notice, really the colors are all kind of natural colors. You don't get the greens that pop or the really bright reds or oranges that you used to get in that era. So, it's always been a treat to me when you see these classic cars on the road, and it's always one of those things that as soon as you see it coming, it garners a head turn each and every time it drives by or one drives by. So there's just something special about those cars. Those are the cars that really got me interested in going to car shows. I love walking the rows and rows of classic cars and trucks, just looking at everything and every detail that went into them and peeking in the windows and just imagining what it was like to drive these cars from a different era and imagining what the roads kind of looked like back then when these cars were on the roads and guys would soup them up and challenge each other. And I always just kind of let my imagination roll with me a little bit when I am at these car shows. And a car show to me is just a great way to get up and personal with these American classics. I mean, you can really get right in there. You can really take a good long look at them and really see where car manufacturing has come. You can talk to the owners. They're always willing to talk to you. And it's just a great way to learn their history, what it took to restore them, and what it took the owners to get it to the point of where it was show worthy. But attending a car show is also a great way to get outdoors and see Wisconsin. Now, remember, the purpose of Wisconsin's Outdoor Explorer is not just to go on hikes and, go fishing or go canoeing or anything like that. It's all inclusive to the outdoors. If that means just sitting on your back porch and watching the birds, that's fine. And to me, car shows fall into that category of getting outdoors. They're the perfect time to get outdoors because they're usually held in that late spring through early fall. Those times when the weather's great, it's not going to snow anymore. It's warm enough that you're going to enjoy being outside, and there's really no better time to get out and enjoy the Wisconsin weather and see some great cars. It's a way to get outside. It's a way to get moving. Some of these car shows are fairly large, so you're going to be walking a lot. It's always just been a great way to get outside and just truly enjoy Wisconsin. That's why if you've never been to a car show, you need to put one on your list to do. I'm here to help you a little bit with that too, if you've never been to one. Or if you have been to one, maybe this is going to help you enjoy it a little bit more. This week, I want to give you 5 tips to help you enjoy going to a car show, because there's just a little bit more than walking around and looking at each car. Now, my first rule about car shows is look, but don't touch. It's a phrase we've all heard many times as a child, and if you have children, it's one that you still use today. And that phrase really holds true when it comes to car shows. Most of the participants showing these beautiful cars spend hours cleaning, wiping, polishing their cars in order to show them off to you. And they love to show them off. This is something they really enjoy doing, and it's part of that culture of getting to a car show and getting ready for a car show. I know guys that'll spend hours before a car show just going through and meticulously cleaning every little detail before they go. So the first rule of car shows is you can look all you want, but don't touch. They work too hard to make these cars look as good as they do. They don't really need viewers climbing into the seats with dirty hands and shoes or touching every piece of well-polished chrome as we pass by. It's really the most courteous thing you can do is to just look and don't touch. And if you're bringing your kids, don't let them climb all over a truck bed or climb on a bumper or, again, climb in any of these cars, because these people put a lot of work into these cars and we can just look at them and just enjoy them. When you think about it, you wouldn't go into an art museum and touch all the paintings or sculptures, would you? I mean, that's kind of the same thing in my opinion. These cars are works of art, and they should be treated as works of art. Ask questions. One thing you learn quickly about car people is they love talking about their cars. They love talking about where they got it, what they did to fix it up, and maybe some memories of their younger years with this very car or a car similar to this. And what's great about car shows is most owners will hang around their vehicle most of the day. They make themselves available to answer questions and talk to you about their car, or talk to you about maybe a car that you owned or have. And if you have a question about something you've never seen or how something works, ask. I can't tell you how many countless times I'll walk by a car, an older car, from the 50s, 60s era, and look at it and go, I have no idea what that thing is. Why is this gadget on here? What does this thing do? And they are more than willing to explain what it is and sometimes even show you what it does. And you'll be amazed at how much you can learn by just asking a few simple questions and being polite, and they'll talk your ear off. Some of these guys will. They really love talking about cars, and they really love teaching people about their car. I've been to some car shows where they'll actually have pictures of the process of restoration from the time they bought it to the time it was finished. And it's really kind of a neat way to see the work that they've done and put in to get that far. My advice is if you got a question, ask. If you're just interested in a certain car, ask a little bit about it. They're going to be more than willing to tell you all about it. This next one, I'm probably going to get a little flack from some of the organizers of car shows, but hear me out a little bit. I like to arrive halfway through the event. Unless you're going to a show that spans multiple days like Iola, most car shows are single day events. And for the most part, they'll typically run from 10 to 3 o'clock. Some spectators come for the whole day, and if there's enough cars and other things to do, that's great, and it's a great experience. But for me, my experience has shown me that the best times are usually to go a few hours after the event has started. If you go as soon as the event starts, sometimes you miss a few cars that are still coming in. And if you go too late, you sometimes don't get through all the cars because as soon as the car show is over and the award show is over, they start leaving. They want to get their babies home and get them back tucked in the garage before, it gets night out. I always find that closer you go to that lunch hour, the better experience you're going to have. And there's typically food stands set up supporting local clubs and organizations. And I just found a few hours after the event starts, it gives you kind of the perfect amount of time to see all the cars and trucks and grab something to eat and not feel like you have to rush to get through everything before it's over with. And you're not getting there too early so that you do all your walking and then you realize, maybe another half dozen to a dozen cars showed up that you didn't see. So give it a little time to set up. Give everybody a little time to breathe and get their things set up. And again, some of these guys, once they get to the show, they do a little bit more cleaning. There's bugs out. They want to get those bugs off before you come around and look. So get there a little bit later after the start, and you'll enjoy that experience a little bit more without feeling rushed or like you missed something. Did you know that you can be a part of most car shows? Most car shows offer a chance for spectators to vote for their favorite car or truck. Shows will break down vehicles into classes based on year and modifications. If you've got, cars from the 40s, they'll block them in there that are separate from the 50s, 60s, and 70s, and then they'll block them into like rat rods and if you've got pickups and if you've got like custom trucks or custom cars, some of these car shows really break them down quite a bit for you. And when you get to the show, you'll have to find an area usually where the participants sign in. There's usually a registration table of some sort or some place where you can go in. Because by the way, most of these car shows are free. Like I said, unless you're going to a big show like Iola or something like along similar to that, most car shows are free for you to walk around. So find that sign-in table, and you'll typically find a form that you can fill out and decide which vehicle in your mind was the best in that class. And it's always kind of a fun thing to do, especially if you've got kids. If your kids are tagging along, you kind of give them that project of, okay guys, let's pick out the best looking car here. And you can break them down into classes, and it just adds a little bit more fun to the show. It gets you involved in the show so that it's not just walking through looking at each car. You can take it as seriously as you want. I mean, you can get right in there and talk to the guys and see what they've done. And what's fun is you can help decide who has the best car in each class, and you can even decide who has the best car or truck out of the whole show. It's kind of a fun thing to do, and again, it's all kind of your opinion. There's no scale on how you vote or anything like that, but you just walk around, pick your favorite one, and make sure you turn your sheets in at the end. And what's fun is then you stick around towards the end of the show, and they'll announce the winners, and you know what? You can see if your car was the car that got picked for best of show. So take a little time, participate, be a part of the show, be a part of that community for a day, and I think you'll enjoy kind of the experience that you get from doing that. All right, the final piece that I've got is take your time. To me, this is the best piece of advice that I can give you, is take your time. The car owners spend a lot of time fixing, cleaning, and polishing their vehicles so that you can enjoy them. This is something that they're really proud of, and they want to show you the work that they've done to restore these classics and bring them back to life. So by you taking your time and really enjoying each car and soaking it in, it's a great way to show them you care and that you appreciate the work that they've done. Now, I'm not saying you need to stop at each and every car and look them over and everything. Just appreciate the work that's gone into restoring them and understand that this is a labor of love. These guys don't do this to make money. Sure, they could sell them, but that's not what they're in it for. They're in it because they probably had a car like this when they were younger, or this is the car that they had when they were younger, kind of like my old truck, but it's something they love to do, and they love showing their car, and they love telling the stories about their car. So listen to their stories, and you know what? Share some of the stories you had. I'm sure you're going to find something at a car show that you probably drove at one time, or you knew of somebody who drove that car. I mean, you're going to be surprised. This isn't just like cars from the 50s, 60s. There's cars that go into the 80s and even the 90s now. So the cars can span a big era, and I'm sure there's going to be some car there that you're going to remember, or it's going to spark something in you that's going to bring a smile to your face. I really hope these tips become useful when you go to your first show, or if you've been to other shows and you're just really not sure what to do. I hope you get some use out of this. Car shows are not only a good way to see some great cars and trucks, but it's also a great way to see some different parts of Wisconsin. You know, you're going to meet some interesting people, and you're going to support some local organizations. So go ahead, take a drive to a car show, to a place that you've never been. Experience what that town and area have to offer. And whether you're into classic cars or not, make plans to visit at least one car show this year as you head out to be one of Wisconsin's outdoor explorers. Thanks again for joining me on this week's episode. Make sure you subscribe to the podcast wherever you listen to your podcasts. If it's Apple Podcasts or Google Podcasts or Spotify, make sure you hit that subscribe button. And I want to thank all my new listeners out there. We've been increasing the podcast here week after week. It's been a fun summer so far of growth for the podcast. So keep listening, keep sharing it with your friends, and keep telling people about Wisconsin's Outdoor Explorer. I'm your host, Jason, and I'm going to talk to you again next week. Thanks for listening to the Wisconsin's Outdoor Explorer podcast. For more great information about being an outdoor explorer, visit our website at wisconsinsoutdoorexplorer.com. Be sure to check out the blog page and follow us on social media. And don't forget to subscribe to this podcast wherever you listen to your favorite podcasts.